Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania succeeded in one aspect and one aspect only, being the single most abysmal movie in the MCU. Just to preface this video, I'm not a Marvel hater by any means, but I'm starting to get really tired of their films. Guardians 3 was my favorite MCU film in a decade, so no, I'm not a hater. I'm also not a Snyderverse fan either, if that's what you were going to accuse me of. I just like good movies, and watching this weird, migraine-inducing, horny, unfunny waste of 2 hours has me heated enough to make a new Why It Sucks video. Plus, Grant the Hierophant gave me and Aiden a new mic, so thank you, sir. Check out his channel if you haven't, link in the description. As well, I'm going to be on his new podcast next week, so check that out as well. Anyways, let's get started. Full disclaimer, this video has a lot of mature subjects and swear words, so if you're under 18, don't tell your parents. This movie treats the viewer as if they have the intelligence of a fucking toddler, and yet it's disgustingly horny throughout its runtime. I get adding adult humor to your film, but I don't need to see Hank Pym go shoulder deep in a 2-pack of Riley Reid officially licensed male masturbators while talking about going balls deep in a woman named Linda to justify that this movie's made for adults. Then you got the little jelly monster who's asking about all the holes Scott has. Janet talks about banging Bill Murray, and it's implied she got it from Kang too. The quantum realm is just a big orgy. Now, this type of humor wouldn't offend me in Axel Braun's Ant-Man and the Wasp XXX porn parody, but this movie actually has a target audience of babies. The world of the quantum realm is basically a giant baby sensory video. There is goo monsters flying around the screen, lasers flying everywhere. The only thing this movie was missing was the multi-platinum record Baby Shark, and it would distract all the babies for hours. So basically, you have to be stupid to think this movie is good, and I mean that with all offense to people who think this movie is good. This film makes 2022's seminal classic Morbius look amazing. You see, both movies are spectacularly dumb. However, Morbius is hilarious, like when Morbius was in a 1940s polio clinic. This film misses the charm of that film and instead is riddled with stupid gimmicks and plot holes that make even the dumbest motherfucker in the world cringe. Let's talk about it. First off, the humor is super embarrassing since none of it lands. Perhaps some of the jokes would have landed, but the movie has such poor acting and directing that the jokes don't even come close. Let's look at the emotional scene where Mr. MODOK dies. This scene should have never happened. It was totally emotionally undercut by constant gags and jokes. Like, I know MODOK was weird, and the joke is that he's the ugliest character ever designed, but that doesn't mean they should joke through the entirety of his emotional sacrifice. In fact, I think MODOK is only in this film as a gimmick to get Marvel hypebeasts excited and make videos about it. His character is nothing like the comics, and his character adds nothing important to the story. He was just here as a vain attempt to drum up hype. In fact, this isn't the only character that was pointless. Bill Murray was too. Bill Murray graces his own character poster in an attempt to add hype to this stinker. Bill Murray shows up for one scene that's totally pointless besides giving Hank, Janet, and Hope a spaceship. Now, why not have a big actor in a bigger role, you may ask? Well, there's two reasons. One, Bill Murray didn't want to be in this crap, and two, Bill Murray wanted a fat paycheck. So you may ask what Marvel gets out of it. The answer is marketing. Throw Bill Murray on a few posters and hopefully the boomers, also known as Bill Murray's entire fan base, will show up. But clearly it didn't work because this movie fucking flopped. Speaking of Bill Murray, in his scene, he explains that Ant-Man and Cassie have been tracked down by Kang somehow. They don't bother to explain how this happens. If we assume there's a rat in the Resistance, then why didn't Kang wipe out the camp earlier? I mean, he's the new Thanos, and this is one of the last camps the Resistance had. He just chose not to fight them for some reason, I guess. This movie achieves literally nothing and ends with every character back to exactly where they were when the movie began. In fact, the film, a few minutes in and a few minutes from the end, have Scott monologuing while walking down the street. He is unironically in the exact same place he was when the movie began. No one really learned a lesson. They tried to shoehorn in some shit about how Ant-Man needs to be less lazy or something at the start of the film, but the plotline's never really resolved and honestly never goes anywhere. Now, in most Why It Sucks videos, I break down the role of each character, but this film doesn't bother to do anything with the characters, so I won't bother to talk about each character because that would be a waste of my time. The one thing I want to talk about most is Kang. So basically, in the upcoming Avengers film, Avengers the Kang Dynasty, Marvel has set up this guy that is supposed to be the new Thanos, basically. But the thing about Thanos is that he was threatening and took a while to establish. Then he bodied the whole Avengers in Infinity War, and that made him a pretty serious threat. Kang in this film gets his shit knocked by Ant-Man in a powerless fight, and we all know that Kang knows how to fight, because he fought Adonis Creed in Rocky 9. So you're telling me this guy can get his shit wrecked by Ant-Man and the gang, and in his own words, he's killed numerous Avengers. But Ant-Man from the MCU, that's just too much for him. And this guy's gonna go up against Captain America, Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man eventually. How the fuck is that gonna work? Imagine if they had Thanos in Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man beats his ass and then like 2 years Infinity War happens and he defeats the Avengers. Wouldn't that kind of undercut the drama of that film? It's literally the dumbest shit ever. The whole idea of the Avengers is that if one of them fought the villain, they would get fucked up. But if they come together, the Avengers can beat them. This is not the case with Kang though. He got beat down by fucking Ant-Man. It's also jarring because the next Marvel film had the High Evolutionary, a villain who would also want to reshape the universe in his own image. But the difference is the High Evolutionary had a good actor behind him who doesn't beat women. And the performance was also convincing. I can also buy how the Guardians won that fight. I'm going to be the first one to say this, so brace yourself. Jonathan Majors sucks in this film. There, I said it. He's literally terrible. And I'm sure now that he's beaten the shit out of a bunch of women, people probably are down to start hating on him. But at the time this movie came out, everyone said his performance was fucking amazing, and that's just a lie. His whole character is just spewing a bunch of faux philosophy while talking like Dr. Evil and looking like he shit his pants. Kang also suffers from what I call the Darth Vader effect. Who here watched Obi-Wan or Star Wars Rebels or reads the comics or plays the games? If you have, you know what the Darth Vader effect is. The Darth Vader effect is that in the movies, Darth Vader is a stone cold badass. And in the expanded canon of Star Wars, he's a fucking Melvin who does nothing and sucks at his job. I mean, everyone beat this motherfucker. Ahsoka, Cal Kestis, Luke like 30 times. It makes him look like an absolute fucking Melvin. But at least I don't care about all that other bullshit and just watch the original 6 Star Wars movies, so it doesn't really matter. In this very canon, very important movie that introduces our new main villain, Ant-Man bodies Kang and ruins any semblance of a threat he was. Disney Darth Vader'd his ass. Also, no one dies, and I know a movie doesn't have to kill characters just to add some drama. It's also not really Marvel's style since it doesn't happen in any of their fucking movies. But you would think they would have killed off one character maybe to try to show Kang as a powerful villain. If I wrote the movie, I would have had Janet sacrifice herself to hold Kang off while Ant-Man and his party escaped. Janet had a relationship with Kang, and they probably could have ass-pulled a reason she could have slowed him down. Like she learned a flaw in his suit or something while in the quantum realm. This would have made Kang look like less of a bitch and also would have given Ant-Man some motivation to want Kang defeated in the Avengers Kang Dynasty. I mean, just think about it. That way Kang wasn't really defeated and something of consequence happens with our characters. In Star Wars, before Disney ruined Darth Vader, Obi-Wan sacrificed himself to save the rest of the cast. It was also an emotional moment since Obi-Wan had a relationship with Vader, while the rest of the characters just kinda knew him as some scary guy. It also showed Vader knocking out one of the last Jedi, giving Luke more of a reason to follow his destiny of tumbling the Empire. The fact that Marvel pussied out on killing anyone really undercut Kang, since how the film was written, basically he had to be defeated for the film to work. However, you could have just as easily done what I recommended a moment ago, and it would have worked much better in my opinion. I don't know, I'm not a Hollywood writer. This movie was written by a Rick and Morty staff writer, which makes a lot of sense because this movie's basically a prolonged episode of that terrible TV show. The cast goes to a strange new world, and says horny jokes, and then the status quo restarts afterwards. The shit probably started as a rejected Rick and Morty script, because even that show isn't this dumb. Also, the world building is really fucking bad. There's nothing well established, the creatures are ugly, the CGI is terrible and gives me a migraine. I also want to talk about the goo that is supposed to explain how these characters can understand the quantum language. I don't get it. Why does only Scott and Cassie need the goo and not Hope or Hank? Like, I assume Bill Murray gave Janet some of the goo last time she was in the quantum realm, but what about the other two? Who fucking cares, I guess. This movie just cut all the previously established characters in favor of some new side characters, like Woman Warrior Person or Goo Man. They cut out Michael Pena and the other guys. No more T.I. If you don't got superpowers, you gotta go, apparently. Also, how did Ant-Man spend 5 years in the quantum realm and not go to this weird world while Janet did? I don't really get that shit either, to be honest with you. I think they ass-pulled this world and had no idea of what the fuck they were doing. Both times I watched this film, my experience ended with a migraine. It is genuinely, undeniably the MCU's shining turd. This is my least favorite MCU movie, and it's not even close. I kind of thought the first two Ant-Man movies were bland, but I guess they were alright. This one just sucks. I think in a lot of similar reviews, the presenters would say some shit like the general audience is dumb and will just take any crap that's fed to them. I may also be guilty of this mindset slightly. However, I think the more accurate approach to this thought process is that the general audience is easier to please. Thankfully, outside of the coping MCU fanboys, I don't think general audiences really enjoyed this one. This movie grossed less than the original Iron Man, and that came out long before this franchise was a money printing machine like it is today. This is the third film in the Ant-Man franchise, and it grossed less than either of the previous two entries. This film outgrossed Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow, but those were kind of the COVID era MCU films, and besides Black Widow, those were all new IPs as well. I'm also willing to bet Black Widow would have outgrossed this if it came out at the same time as this film. This film made less than half of what Doctor Strange 2 made. Critics also hated this movie with a 48 on Metacritic and a 47 on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think this is the death of the Marvel movie by any means, but it proves that general audiences don't want these B stories as much as they did pre-Endgame. I think if Marvel was smart, they'd focus on franchises like Spider-Man, Deadpool, the X-Men, and Black Panther, and take risks with those franchises. You can't really take risks with these B franchises as much, but any of those four, people are going to see them just because they recognize the IP. So you get good directors and take risks with the bigger franchises that are too big to fail, and then you start slowly integrating in these B characters again. I also think they need to look long and hard at who they hire to write and direct their films, since I think both aspects were severely lacking in the case of this film. Overall, I fucking hate this film. Bye.
Frat brother, real nigga, that brother. We dress up the score, give me that brother. Spirit medium, on rap brother. We headed there now, are you strapped brother? Hey, peacemaker, but I'm not naive brother. Hey, gotta watch your homies and police brother. Hey, cloud chasing, hell of a disease, brother. I'm fasting 4 days out the week, brother. I pray to